Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another episode of the strategy series, 2 in 1 week. What kind of craziness is this? Well, you guys may or may not have seen me post a post on Facebook yesterday talking about my experience with Universe 7 Invoker. Now, yeah, I was pretty salty. The point of the post was not to say that, like, Catastrophic Blow and certain cards should be banned. It was more so the debate of whether or not, like, some people say that you should either have a card at 4 copies per deck or 0 copies per deck and, like, no in between. And I kind of made an argument that, like, Catastrophic Blow could be at 2 copies per deck, and I think that'd be a pretty cool semi-limit. But then I was salty. I can't really deny it. So, you know, instead of that today, we're here to just talk about how to beat U7. I think this is a video for me just as much as it is for you guys out there watching this video. So we're going to talk through that today, guys. If you have any ideas, of course, let me know in the comments below. We're going to try and keep the salt levels at a minimum. With that being said, guys, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. Hit that bell so you don't miss a video. If you want to help support the channel, lots of ways you can do that. We've got the Patreon down below. Pretty important to check that out now that Tournament of Power is happening this weekend. Super hyped for that. We also have the Crosswell TCG merch store, which the stuff looks dope and helps out a lot. And finally, guys, if you want to buy any of these counters to Universe 7, make sure to use my link to either TCG Player or Bearded Collectibles in the comments or in the description down below. With that being said, let's get on into it. So we've got the strategy of Universe 7 to talk about first. So Tournament of Power Arena is their consistency card. They really want to see this on turn 1. They don't always get there, but they do have a 1-drop blue Whis that will search this straight from the deck. So it's not super unlikely they'll get there. So what does this do? So it's a 1-drop field card. If your leader card's Universe 7, you can charge red-blue multicolors without dealing with energy exhaust. So it makes their energy just pretty clean. Activate main if leader card's Universe 7 and you switch this card to rest mode. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Rearrange them in any order. You can put any of them to the bottom, any of them to the top, put whatever order you want. That's really important because all the Universe 7 extra cards, for the most part, have an ability that says you warp it from the drop area. Then you're able to look at the top card of your deck. If it's an extra card, you reveal it to your opponent, then you add it to your hand. Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta Inspired Technique is a barrier deflect invoker. This is like a Gogeta 7 Jr., you know, instead of, 5 keyword skills, he's got 3 of them. So this is basically the linchpin of the deck. This is what they're going to use those extra cards on you. So for the first 2 turns of the game, the deck doesn't really do too much besides play Tournament of Power Arena. Maybe they'll topo you on turn 2, depending on if they have the energy available to do so, but they might not be able to, depending on the situation. Like if they had to search Whis, or search the Arena turn 1 with Whis, and then play Arena turn 2, or if they have to do like some really awkward plays on turn 2, they're not gonna be able to topo you. But really, they don't do too much until turn 3. But once they get to turn 3, they're gonna drop Vegeta. They will either awaken or defensively use the Beerus super combo to get energy standing to use their extra cards. They have the field spell, the field board wipe. They have the death beam that negs 30 any battle card ignoring barrier, and they also have Royal Condemnation. And they also have Catastrophic Blow, which is the burn damage extra card. We've got Ultra Instinct Son Goku Energy Explosion, 6-drop Invoker auto. When you play it, you choose 3 of your energy, you put them in the drop area, you pick up 3 from your drop area, and you charge them in active mode. So basically, it's a really big 3-drop. And when you play it, this is when they're going to abuse Catastrophic Blow. When you control the Goku, the Catastrophic Blow deals 1 damage to the opponent. So this guy also says that when you deal damage to your opponent, you deal 1 additional damage. So whether this guy is attacking your opponent to deal damage, whether you're just going to resolve 4 catastrophic blows, that's a total of like 3 to 5 life they can just burn right through as long as they get to resolve this Goku. So now that we talked about the strategy, let's go through and see what we can do to counter this archetype. So the first thing we're talking about, hyper aggressive decks. Like I said before, in the first 2 turns of the game, Universe 7 doesn't do a whole lot. So Reboot Gohan is a really hype aggro deck that people are talking about right now. I've seen builds ranging from red-green arrival aggro to blue-green kind of like 1-drop spam aggro to green-yellow successor aggro, just playing a bunch of arrivals and then successoring off into the 8-drop Gohan from the Cell Expert deck. All those I think are really strong, but the moral of the story is it's a leader-centric aggro deck that has an inherent answer to topo, because you're going to put yourself to really low life early on, and then you're going to have the focus breakthrough to answer the topo, and then you can generally just like swing through that and put a lot of pressure on or win the game outright. So that type of hyper aggressive deck is gonna be really good. Another hyper aggressive deck I want to mention, Demigra, and I think that this is more of a rogue aggro deck, but I actually think it's really well positioned in the format, because Demigra is one of the more pivotal decks that can kind of pivot from aggro to like a bit more of a mid-range game. So if you don't necessarily want to play Gohan, you don't want to play like a one-trick pony kind of thing, you can play Demigra and kind of play a more mid-rangey game with like Vegeta Time Regulator and the other Demigra chain, the power booster that goes into the 7-drop, that goes into the other 4-drop Demigra that starts to rip at the opponent's hand. But if you want, you can just go full on aggro in Demigra and I think that's going to put you in a pretty good position against Universe 7. Again, and if you're going first, you're going to be able to get to 4 life. You're going to be able to Super Kamehameha the Topo to deal with it. Topo, for a strong physical card as it is, it does have a lot of liabilities if you're able to take advantage of those. For example, the mini counterplays like Super Kamehameha and Focus Breakthrough that we talked about. You've also got some of your battle card counterplays. For example, the new 2-drop Frieza that came out in set 9, Undying Emperor Frieza. It's a 2-drop battle card that produces a 15k body and also stops Topo. It puts Topo back in the hand, negates the play. So that is really, really good for being aggressive. So just a few things that I wanted to mention about being hyper aggressive against Universe 7. Next up, we're talking about hand control. Universe 7 really does not like hand control. In the beginning of the game, it does have a slightly more limited hand size. That can blow up when they decide to use the drop area effects to warp and then look at the top card for an extra card if they happen to stack the deck in a way that allows them to do that. They can also blow up their hand when they awaken and add 3 extra cards from their drop area or warp back to their hand thanks to the leader effect. But if you're able to play early hand control like Zamasu, basically blue-green Piccolo decks using the Goku Black Zamasu engine, and like the Cell and Android decks can do, you're going to be in for a pretty good time. So Universe 7 has a lot of great late game against different mid-range strategies like Cooler, like Janemba, anything that doesn't put too much pressure on in the mid game. But these hand control decks, their big boss monsters are what is doing the hand control. So if you're able to drop these, rip apart the U7 hand, you're going to be in for a pretty good time going up against the deck. Next up, we're talking about removal options. Specifically, you want to be able to remove the 3-drop Vegeta, the Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta inspired technique. So what are ways to do that? Well, I keep talking about these cards, and I'm probably going to keep talking about them. We've got the extra cards for every color that remove a battle card ignoring barriers. So Red's example, Cease to Exist. This one's actually pretty cool because if your opponent happens to drop 2 Vegetas, which isn't really ever going to happen, but if they do, you can't do 2 of them in one go. But this is actually more relevant. Like, you're gonna probably see like Vegetas next to Topos, so getting the 2-for-1 here is really solid no matter what red deck you're playing, Cooler or any other type of red deck. Green, Artificial Impact, you kill a barrier, so you kill the Vegeta and then your opponent discards a card. That's also really good. Justice Blast is a little bit more weird because it has to be in rest mode, but you do have cards like Chomp the Trickster. Mutato won't work because they'll be playing it on turn 3, but any other ways you can tap barrier, which yellow does have pretty much plenty of ways to do, and then blacks that I can never remember the name of just warps it. So these cards are really good, and they combo for 5k if you do need to combo them in a pinch so they don't really clog up your hand. The other good answer, Son Goku in close quarters. Auto, when you play or combo with this card, if there's a multicolored card in your energy, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with barrier and an energy cost of 3 or less ignoring barrier and KO it. So this card is literally the answer to Inspired Technique. It's the only relevant 3-drop with barrier in the format. And that's so funny that that Goku is just taking out Vegeta like that. But anyways, so you're comboing this card, and this is a good answer if you feel like 3 energy for one of these extra cards that we talked about is a bit too energy costly. Another thing too is like if you're playing yellow, and like I said, Justice Blast isn't really super great to use because you do have to somehow get the Vegeta in rest mode. This is a great alternative to that because this doesn't care what mode it's in. It's just you combo this card, which U7 really can't interact with that except negating your attack, but are they really going to negate every single attack you can do every single turn? Most likely not. So with that in mind, this is a really good answer in the form of like a way to do it during the combo. You can play this card if you're in a green type of deck, but you probably don't want to do that because then they can counterplay it and then you're not going to be able to get your auto. So just want to make sure I mention that point. Next up, we're talking about counterplays to the 6-drop Goku. The options for this are pretty limited. You've got Cold Bloodlust, you've got Frost Deadly Poison, which is pretty strictly tied to blue-yellow, and of course we have seen a lot of tricolor decks emerge lately. So splashing blue-yellow in like a blue-red deck or a red-yellow deck, it's not the hardest thing to do by any means, so it is very possible. So if that's something you think your deck can do, if you think yellow can benefit your deck in a meaningful way, Frost Deadly Poison might be the card for you. Otherwise, if you're playing a blue deck that's not able to splash yellow, or you're playing mono blue for some reason, maybe you want to play Ultra Instinct Son Goku the Unstoppable. I know people don't like when we talk about draft box cards, but I do have to talk about relevant ways to stop the 6-drop Goku. And UI Goku the Unstoppable is particularly good. If they tap out for 6, you counterplay with this. They can't Royal Condemnation it because they are tapped out. They don't have the 1 energy for their Invoker. Or if you've answered the Vegeta previously with the card we talked about before, then they definitely can't Invoker to remove it. So UI Goku is going to bounce the 6-drop Goku back to their hand. They can't burn you because they don't control a Goku. And that's a really good way to deal with that. Next up, We're talking about field card removal. Piccolo Jr. Arena Wrecker and Tactical Victory Vegeta. Both of these remove field cards. Piccolo Jr. Arena Wrecker is technically a 1 cost, and it is a bit more energy efficient than the Vegeta. But Vegeta hits any field spell. Piccolo Jr. only hits 1 cost field spells. So if you are afraid of like the random Android 21 or Android 18 deck, you might want to consider playing Vegeta. The 2 energy versus the 1 energy is not a huge difference in my opinion, so I would strongly recommend considering playing this card. It's kind of unfortunate it's only tied to green, but still good options nonetheless. Next up, we're talking about 2 cards that I'm not really sure how I feel about, but people tell me that they're pretty good answers to Universe 7, so we'll talk about them. Deborah, Darkness Perfected, and Hellfighter 17 Neutralizer. They're both counterplays. Keep in mind, Deborah is pretty much generic, even though it's a 3 cost in a non-mono black deck. It is still a generic counterplay. So Deborah, during your opponent's turn, when you play this card, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, and it can't activate its skills or attack for the duration of the turn. Hellfighter 17, when you play this card or it's placed in the drop area from a skill, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and negate its skills for the duration of the turn. So Hellfighter 17, I can see a pretty good case for, because you're negating the Invoker on the Goku and you're negating the additional 1 energy burn of the Goku. Now, they'll still get their interplay effect to basically untap 3 energy, because their interplay goes before your interplay effects, but that's fine. The important thing is stopping the Invoker and stopping the additional burn damage. Deborah is a bit different. They can't activate the skill, so they can't activate the additional burn damage, but I don't believe Invoker is a skill that activates. I could be totally wrong on that, so let me know in the comments below if I am wrong on that. But the fact that they can't attack with it is kind of nice, because sometimes they do need to attack with that huge 35k body in order to put you to a low enough life so that you can, you know, die to the burn damage. So that is something that's possibly good. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below what you think about that. But the problem I have, though, is if you're playing around the burn damage by staying at a high life, you are playing into the victory strike, which they always want to victory strike you at, you know, above 4 life generally. So you are playing into that. But luckily, victory strike in the U7 deck can be negated by your typical extra card negate attacks. So that's pretty good in my book. So guys, in this video, we talked about how to counter U7. Hopefully you found it helpful. I hope you guys use this information. I hope you guys find it helpful before going into the Tournament Power Weekend. I hope to see you there. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.